Good morning, Itai.
Good morning, Rabbi. You
How
are
are you?
a bit more relaxed.
I'm very relaxed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
just
kind of.
suffering with hay fever and everything. So last time we were discussing the Twilight Zone, which was absolutely
You
fascinating.
loved it, huh?
I
You never
loved it.
watched it, really? I mean,
No,
definitely
I
not the
just
old
the Spielberg,
original.
just the Spielberg one. It was fascinating, and then
I wish
obviously
from that. It
I
wouldn't
try
be
to watch
Spielberg.
these ones. I try and look, but as you say, you just have to pay for them. So I haven't really looked, and I think we need to go and jump in again to a couple of episodes, see if they discuss them,
And
see if they're related to
Torah.
yeah,
Everything is Torah.
yeah.
Nothing is
So connected. Let's try and kind of learn lessons out of these things, that can improve our lives. The main point is to improve our lives, our mental health, you know, and yeah, if you, as the Baal Shem Tov says, that everything you have to learn from everything how to serve Hashem. So if this is something that we can, you know, serve Hashem with, then it will be fantastic.
Yes, definitely. I think that Rod Serling and the Twilight Zone in general was pretty much about stories with morals. They are about to make you think. Really, you will have to think, and you will have to philosophize certain things, and they are not just there in order to entertain you, in order to give you escapism, like television does, especially today. It's all about escapism and shut you down and feed you with information, make you as passive as a potato. Okay, so let's go straight
I
into the
like that.
yeah,
Make you as passive as a potato.
potato, something like that. Let's go to this. I'll try to review a few episodes, and I just love talking about it and trying to make some
By the way, I
conclusion.
was looking, they did a lot of episodes.
A lot, or they had a few seasons. I don't remember exactly how many, so don't. I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe 6 or 7. It was very successful back then. People could appreciate good television. The episodes again, they are very short. This is beautiful. I remember when I watched it as a teenager, and I said to myself, "Well, this is such a wonder." And it goes maybe for 25 minutes, and after that, you just want so much more. You said, "Well, it goes into. It feels like it's 2 minutes, but
Mm.
there is so much content." And I told you, like aesthetically, I think it was beautiful. The black and white, very simple, very sharp. Serling was a genius. We spoke a bit about him. Sorry, it's very important. I think the guy was Jewish and he served in the Second World War.
Yeah.
He was going through horrible trauma there. And I wish I knew more about it because I did study the life of Barney Ross, the fighter who was also
Yeah.
involved in the war. Pretty
Yeah.
similar
Yeah.
story to Rod Serling. He got injured as well,
Yeah.
but I understand that it affected him very deeply when he came to start to writing the Twilight Zone, his experiences from the war. Okay, let's go to this episode that I think was one
Is
of
it Rob or Rod?
Rod Rod Serling,
Serling.
Serling,
Rob
yeah.
Serling.
Serling, yeah, he had great style as well, and he was introducing the episodes, great voice. He started as an actor, I believe, but just great mind. He wrote some episodes that I think even not necessarily the Twilight Zone was very controversial at the time because he was attacking social issues. He did it before it became mainstream,
Yeah.
and probably with much more
He passed
honesty.
away very young, you know that.
I remember something, yeah, I remember,
Age 50. He was
yeah.
very, very young.
He had a very strong life though.
I wonder if it was because of all the trauma from World War II.
Maybe because they were going through, of course, war is a trauma, but they were going through, he was part of something that considered to be the death squad. I think that meaning that most people are going, they are not going to come back. It was obvious
What do you mean
to,
by the death squad?
something like that. I'm not sure if that was the right name for it, but it meant that most of them are not coming back.
Listen, he was very stressed. He used to smoke 4 or 5 packs of
Yeah,
cigarettes
see,
a
smoking
day.
was part of it. It
Yeah.
became
And he
very
had a heart
iconic
attack. He
within
had a
them.
heart attack.
Yeah, a trademark on the introductions to the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
It brought a lot of atmosphere. I'm not smoking.
But
I
the
don't like
Twilight Zone was
smoking, but
what, in the 60s, right?
it's 59. It started.
So after he died, he wrote all these different.
They were co-writers as well, I believe. I know that they were co-writers, but Serling is just the man who came with the concept. He started it, and he was the face of the Twilight Zone. And it's just amazing, we created this realm of where things that are not really part of reality as we know it are going to happen. The realm of the limbo in between states, the supernatural, the unknown.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Fantastic.
you know what it's like? I was actually thinking about it. What the Twilight Zone is I was actually
A
watching.
great name, by the way, so the
Yeah,
Twilight Zone. Perfect.
yeah. I was watching a debate between not a debate. It was an interview between BBC and that scientist, modern day scientist, he's an atheist.
Oh, Dawkins.
Dawkins, yeah.
It's so bored.
No, but it was.
If that's what the atheist says, if this is the best weapon, they are not in a good
I know,
place.
I know. No, but anyway,
That's my opinion.
so he was asking a
If he
question.
wants, he can come and argue with us. I'll
He
be
was,
more than happy. Please,
yeah,
Dawkins, come.
no, so he was basically was asking him questions. The same guy that actually interviewed Elon Musk recently, the
Okay.
BBC, the same guy that was Dawkins. He was
I'm
like,
not watching the BBC, so I don't
and
know.
he was asked him a question. He said, after COVID, people don't trust science. How could you, how could? But he was so adamant that science has all the answers
Yeah, of
that he
course.
wouldn't apologize for science mistakes.
Otherwise, he would
He
have
does.
no tips and nothing to write
Correct.
to.
And the Twilight Zone is something where, you can live in this world and there are physics exists,
Hmm.
and, you know, and technically, if physics exists, you should always be able to work out what the answer is. Whatever you do, 1 + 1 should always equal 2. You should always work out. But life doesn't work like that. Life works where you can think that you have a trajectory of this, and suddenly this happens, that happens, something that don't make sense, something beyond the usual sense. And that's to me what the Twilight Zone is. The Twilight Zone is that sphere beyond the rational, which is not irrational, but is actually rational. Does that make sense?
You know that
You know?
we recorded the story, a podcast here with our dear friend Professor Misha, Professor of Mathematics, and we actually spoke about that. And you should watch it when you get the time. And it was about me. I don't like the word science. I like the word natural philosophy. Newton, Descartes, all the great scientists, the modern scientists, the people who created science, as we know, they came from a very religious background. Newton was a very religious man.
Mm.
The idea of metaphysics, the idea of this unknown, the beyond science for me just talks about a
Yeah.
very rigid
It's too
concept.
rigid. It's too
Yeah,
rigid.
it doesn't hold
It
enough.
can't answer all the questions. Like, it can't answer your daily questions. Why is it that you decided to take this road instead of that road, even though most of the time the reason you found out because there was an accident? Then it's like, 1 second, was that by chance? Was that, how did that work?
It's
You know,
it's
science doesn't allow you to take a different route. Science only tells you to take the one. I don't. I just found that he was a little bit, as back to our original conversation. It was the arrogance of scientists.
That's why I think when I listened to him, I think I believe it was Piers Morgan who was interviewing him, and just again by chance because I don't really have time and patience for that. So I was listening and I said, "Oh my God, man, this guy, it's depressing." That's the way I was. That was the way I was speaking about it. Not that all his arguments were bad. I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to say that the guy is dumb or anything. But
He's very highly intelligent. I think.
I'm not saying he's. But there are more intelligent people than him. That's my opinion about it.
Okay.
And I think that his arguments, again, if this is what the atheist has as their best weapon or one of their best weapons or one of their most popular weapons, then they are not in such a good place. I think that they are not in a good place anyway. I don't really even recognize the idea of atheism as a concept, but that's a different story altogether.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
so
so that's the Twilight Zone for me.
yeah, that's what he lives in the Twilight Zone. Maybe I definitely should come and argue with us or debate. I mean, you don't need to argue. I mean, if he wants to argue, you can argue. What do you think about it? Anytime.
Anytime. Just not when I have this very bad hay fever.
Okay.
And anyway, let's go. Let's hear our first episode.
And Frisbee. That's one of my favorite episodes, but there are so many. So, what is it really about? It's about this guy. He lives in a small town. He got his little business there. This is another thing that I love about Rod Serling. He really knew how to pick these pieces of Americana. He really could make you fall in love with these very peaceful, calm places, and they are part of the fabric of the good old America. So this guy sits there in his gas station, I think, business, whatever, and he tells tall stories about himself. Oh, I was a general. I did this. I won wars. I had my soldiers fighting for me. I got 10 different degrees in physics, in this, in that. I mean, he invents stories that are just crazy. No one really believes him. Just listen to him. They may feel sorry for him. They are just being a bit bored. And
Every time he speaks, it's a different story.
it does. I watched the episode a long time ago, but I remember he just tell them tall tales. It's just like, oh, I used to be this, I used to be that, and that don't make sense. And he's probably the most accomplished man in the universe according to his stories. Yes,
Yeah.
and he's just a simple man working in a gas station. Okay, but then one day he's getting kidnapped by aliens. This is a wonderful thing that Rod Serling enjoyed a lot doing this type of things. He enjoyed he enjoyed incorporating the idea of alien cultures because that allowed him.
In that time, it was very big.
It was very big, and I think it's part of the mythology of the folk that came with the Cold War after post Second World War. This is fascinating subject. Another subject we should talk about, I believe, which is about UFOs, the culture of UFOs. I look at it as a folk tales,
Yeah.
and even if entities exist, I don't see them as the same as they are trying to be depicted in movies as flying sorcerers and the usual popular myth about them. So he's been kidnapped by aliens, and these aliens actually kidnapped him. Now, of course, he's very afraid. Now he finds himself in a very unusual experience, and he wants to escape. So first, obviously, we understand that it's going to be a bit of a Aesop. Boy cry wolf, right? After he's assuming that they're going to release him, like happened to a lot of other people who got caught by aliens and examined. This he's going to go back to his friends, tell them I was kidnapped by aliens. Yes,
Exactly. Who's going to believe it?
No one is going to believe it.
That's why they chose to take him.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the interesting thing. That's not the reason. This is how Rod Serling shows us his intelligence and how he twists the plot. Because actually the aliens, the reason why they kidnapped him is because they don't recognize in their logical mind, they don't have a concept of lies. So they were actually what they're observing the observing this location, Earth, whatever, and they found a specimen. They said, "Wow, this is the most accomplished man on Earth." So they need to kidnap him and put him in some sort of a zoo for the greatest creatures and aliens that they could have found all over the universe. Yeah. So they took Mr. Frisbee with them because now you understand, now he's a specimen. Yeah. But he needs to convince them that his stories were lies. Yeah. Now he got a problem. They don't believe him either. You understand? Tries to tell the truth and then believe him because they don't understand lies.
They don't understand lies.
Yes, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating subject. I like to ask you a question that comes back to now question Torah. I remember when I was sitting with the yeshiva boys a few years ago, and we talked about Etz Hadat, so the tree of knowledge. So Adam and Eve, before that, Adam and Chava, they of course they were not animals. They had consciousness, they had intelligence. Yeah. Once they were eating, what was the knowledge? I mean, I think I know the answer. I just wondered because it comes back to the concept of what does it mean to have actually. For me, just I can relate to it through the idea of having a mind that doesn't recognize the concept of lies. So what was the consciousness of Adam and Eve?
So obviously many different opinions, but the one is like this, is that not that they didn't see good and evil. That wasn't the issue. There was good and bad, right? Mm-hmm. And they knew that there was good and they knew that there was bad. They understood this concept. The thing was that it never mixed, right? There was never a mixture of good and bad. So you can never have a situation where it could potentially be bad and potentially be good. That they didn't have. That, when they ate from the Eitz Hadas, what happened was everything started to mix together. And their eyes opened up where, there's a mixture over here. And that's why they got themselves closed. Because before there was they never had there was this is the order that, they had no temptation. It was different boxes. You understand? And once they ate, everything they got a bit of a shock because now, bad is good is bad. It just they didn't have,
Understand? Okay.
And that's why it says that you'd be like God, right? Because with God, right, there's no difference if you really think about it. God created everything, so good and bad. There's a certain level of God where there's no good or bad. You know what I mean? Yes. Bad is not bad, and good is not good. You know what I'm saying? They're actually both qualitatively or exactly the same from his perspective, and they got that vision. You understand? They were open their eyes that actually, in everything, the essence of everything is God itself, but there is this infusion in everything. You understand? And that's kind of the knowledge that they acquired, which was a God knowledge. Yeah. And what did you think it was?
No, I was just wondering about the state of consciousness.
Yeah, that was it. It was Eitz Hadas. They realized that there's a certain level of godliness where good and bad are exactly the same. and that becomes a challenge as it manifests
That's a
itself.
very good explanation. I remember when I was sitting there was not really a straightforward answer, which doesn't mean, by the way, that it shows necessary lack of knowledge. But as you said, it's probably extremely debatable subject that was going through the ages and the smart, all this Talmidei Chachamim, smart
Yeah,
students and sages and the greats. Probably there is a lot to read about it.
yeah. But there's many different opinions on exactly what it did. But I want to touch on one thing very interesting about the story, if I may. Can I
Tell me.
veer slightly to the left over here?
Okay.
When you were telling me the story of Hocus Pocus, it reminded me of a very interesting story. I'm going to take this and I'll give you an
That's
example.
not the end of the story, by the way. But
Sorry, no, carry on.
okay, let's
Okay.
could change too much, but anyway, I'll tell you how it ends because he cannot negotiate with them. Of course, negotiation is out of it's out of the question because they don't
Negotiation
understand.
has lies inside.
Yeah, probably.
But if not lies, you just half inflate.
Exactly. They will not take his side anyway. That's it. He realized
Yeah.
it. Or maybe out of despair and really not knowing what he's about to do, he had an harmonica because he used to play an harmonica, and he started playing his harmonica. And apparently, they are so sensitive to the noise, to the frequencies of the harmonica, so they decided to throw him out of the spaceship, and they released him. So that's how Rod Serling actually solved this issue and brought him back into his small town because I guess he wanted just to go back with the narrative of Aesop of Boy Cried Wolf. Because he realized
when he got back to town, did he tell everybody he got captured by aliens, or that leaves you open for? Did he start telling the truth?
I wish I could watch it again. I think maybe he spoke with them, or maybe Rod Serling just decided not to give you the obvious because you can already make it in your mind. And he was just I think what happened in the end is that you see Frisbee shocked after he's been abandoned by the aliens and he's in the middle of the forest or something like that, and he's just thinking about the experience he was going through. And Rod Serling, as usual, is just giving you some few lines to the very end of it, and that's summarizing.
It gives you the opportunity to interpret.
Yeah, you know what is the obvious line of reasoning here. I mean, what will come next? I mean, in that sense, they will probably go back to town and tell them, you won't believe what happened to me yesterday. I was kidnapped. Like,
okay, Frisbee. Okay.
But this is brilliant. What the twist with the aliens? It's very interesting. And again, Rod Serling was a man who wanted us to think and try to see a bit further, a bit beyond. Because television got the reputation, rightfully so, in my opinion, to dumbify people. That was not about dumbifying people.
And most things, yeah, exactly. If you watch, yeah, exactly. If it makes you think afterwards,
it does. That's the reason why I think it's worth us talking about it because you understand. But what you wanted to say?
Yes, I want to tell you something very interesting. I've said it maybe before to you, but I'll say it again. You have sometimes you have these people that turn around, and you see it a lot in Judaism. I'm sure you have it in also Islam, and I'm sure you have it in Christianity, and I'm sure you have it in all institutions, where you have these people and they say to you like this: "I'm all holy, right? I keep all these commandments. I'm doing what God wants, and you don't, and therefore you are damned to hell." You know these people?
I know they exist.
You know these people, right? So there's a story of a guy. There's a story. It's a story from. It's a story called. Shmuel Munkus.
No, I don't know.
Shmuel Munkus. Fine. There is a guy called Shmuel Munkus, and there was a guy that came to town, and his name was the Maggid. Yeah,
Magid, yeah.
he was a Maggid. He came to town, and his job, right? You know what his job was? His job was to go around and scare people.
Okay.
How did he scare people? You know what he did? It was a proper paying position. They used to get paid a lot. They used to come into the shul. And they used to say, "Okay, guys," and they used to call everybody from the village. They used to say, "Everybody come to the village," and they used to come before Rosh Hashanah. It used to be like a month before Rosh Hashanah because they used to freak people out. And then the rabbi used to say, "Yes, come." Um, um, and all the community used to come, all the communities, and they all used to sit and used to say, "All of you guys are damned to hell." That's what he used to say. You're not keeping the commandments. You do all the wrong things. You're going to hell. Hashem hates you. God hates you for all the bad things that you're doing. Right? So that's what he used to do. So there was a guy called Shmuel Munkus, and he was in town, and he's busy listening to this, and he says, "You know what? I'm going to teach this guy a lesson." Yeah. See, so just as a precursor, right? As a precursor, there is a certain halacha, there is a commandment that before Rosh Hashanah, we go to grave sites of righteous people, so they pray on our behalf. Okay, you understand?
Okay.
It's a halacha. It's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch. It says that if um, you go just before Rosh Hashanah and you say, may this tzaddik pray on my behalf, Hashem, so he can go on my behalf. What do you call it? Pray on my behalf, and that's the halacha. So what happened was Shmuel Munkus decides, says to this guy, he says, "You know what? I want you to come to my house. Yes, I want you to come to my house and this time." And yeah, so the guy's like, "Okay, fine, I'll come to his house." So he comes to his house and he knocks on the door. He thinks he's going to be all respected. Yeah, he comes inside and he knocks on the door and he walks inside. And what does he see Shmuel Munkus doing? He's got a big blade like this, a big blade. You heard the story before?
No, I'm
And
listening to you.
he's sharpening this blade. Yeah, he comes out. You're right. Right. So he's like, "What the hell is he doing?" So Shmuel's like, "Come inside, come inside." He comes inside. Shmuel goes, locks the door. Now he's sitting in the room with this Meshuggah Shmuel, this crazy guy, big sharp knife like this, and he's sharpening it. So he's like, "Okay, what are you doing?" He says, "I'm sharpening my knife. We're going to kill you." Because what? He says, "You see, we have got a problem in this town. We have no righteous people. And we know that the law says that before Rosh Hashanah we have to go to righteous people. So I figured you're so righteous. You know, you haven't done any Averas because you're telling all the people that they're going to hell for doing the wrong thing. So we'll kill you and we'll bury you, and you'll be our tzaddik, you'll be our righteous person. You'll be our righteous person that we go to on Erev Rosh Hashanah to pray on our behalf. He's like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. I'm not so righteous. I speak badly about people. He goes, I'm sure it wasn't on purpose. But no, you don't understand. I stole from that guy. Before you know it, this guy's spilling out all his averas that he's doing. Eventually, Shmuel will say, "Listen, don't come to town and tell everybody that they're doing the wrong thing when you yourself you do the right thing." He says, "Get out."
Practice what you preach.
He said, "Get out."
Just don't preach.
Exactly. Now, this story reminded me.
Frisbee,
This story reminds me of
trying
that.
to speak with the aliens,
You know, in the beginning, he's like, "I'm this, I'm this, I'm this." You know what I mean? But when suddenly the pressure's up, you know, it all disappears when you understand. And that's when you read the story. That's the story that was So we see from this the lesson I hear from this story is, first of all, don't judge people. You know, when you tell people off, you know, when you see people doing the wrong thing, you know, from a religious point of view. Obviously, if they're going to run in the road. But I'm saying, you know, you've got to realize that you probably also do a lot of bad things. So you should do it out of love and out of encouragement.
This is very Chabad, by the way. Very Chabad. I realized that since I started knowing Chabad, I think my first exposure was by Mechel Gens guys. Yes. And I saw it, people are actually trying to speak to you. Not trying, they're speaking to you in that way. They don't judge you. They encourage you, but they don't judge you and they don't criticize you. And it's not because they don't care. They just have a different way of approaching.
Because I also do Averas. You also do the wrong thing. I also do the wrong thing. But together, hopefully, you'll inspire me to do more right things, and I'll inspire you in the right way. So that's what the story. The story. Let's go to the next one.
Okay. The next one is pretty dark, I think. It's an episode that was aired in the 90s, I think. Okay, so Twilight Zone, of course, was such a success that you had several series coming later on. I think one of them was in the 90s. The name of this one is Button. And I love it. I think it was brilliant. Okay, so this one is about a couple, a wife and a husband, living in this quite bad flat, suffering from bad financial problems. And the wife sits at home, smokes, she's very angered, she complains a lot, blames the husband for the situation. The husband himself is a very simple man. He's a very simple in character. He's fairly moral, but he's very simple as well. He's very weak in his character. So he got one of these night shift jobs that pays him very little. One day they receive a package. Now that was before the days of Amazon and eBay and all that. So everyone received tons of packages all day long. So they received a package. They open it and they see a box, and there is a button on the box. Okay, so and there is a note, and the note says a representative is going to come and explain to you the aim of the box. So they don't know. They are very curious, and again, they are very simple people as well. They are not educated or anything like that. They are not people who can actually. They're trying to actually philosophizing it later, but in a very very basic way.
In a simple way, because they're simple.
Yes, simple people. But let's go to the point there. So he goes to his night shift. She is staying at home, extremely curious, extremely upset, extremely desperate. And then a man knocks on the door, a tall guy with a suit. He looks out of this world. He looks from the Twilight Zone. And he tells her, okay, so this is the deal. There is a button there. If you push the button, someone that you don't know will die, and you will get $200,000, which will, for them, it's like 200 million. And just all you need to do is just to push the button. Someone you don't know, somewhere around, you got a big planet, and many people, someone will die, and people die always, every second.
And you can't decide who that person is.
This is amazing. It's an amazing concept because he just leaves, tell them that, and she, after that moment, she becomes absolutely obsessed.
She's pushing the button.
But she doesn't know what to do. She struggles morally. But at the same time, it can be a trick. It can be just a con. Who cares? I mean, the thing is that when the husband comes back early in the morning, he sees that his wife is not sleeping. So he asks her, what's going on with you? She says, I cannot sleep. I'm too excited. I'm too curious. I'm too upset about what is going on. And he takes a screwdriver. First, he tells her not to do it. He's against the idea, okay? He's a simple guy, but he's morally thinking that it's not correct, even if he doesn't necessarily believe it. I mean, why pushing a button like that will make someone that we don't know, someone somewhere that die, something like that. So he takes a screwdrivers, he opens the box, the bottom of it, and he looks, and the button is connected to nothing. It's like a placebo, nothing. It's just if you took a box, put a button with a spring that connects to nothing. So basically that means that logically speaking, nothing can happen if you push it. Nothing will happen. But still they battle with the idea, and he tells her, don't do it, don't do it. And she wants to do it, she wants to do it. Eventually, of course, she pushed the button, and then after she pushed the button, actually a man comes with a suitcase filled with dollars, and he says to her, this is for you, $200,000. And he takes the box and he tells her, now someone will use it as well, maybe. And this person who will push the button will make someone else that he doesn't know die. And that's it, pass away. But it was just fascinating. You need to watch the episode to see the dynamics between them, the conflict, the tribulations, the curiosity. This is by the way, it's a Pandora box. It's a Pandora box story, but using certain modern elements and again some more twist on the plot. So it again coming back to the classic.
Yeah. It's such an interesting. This is a very interesting story, I must say.
Yes, please say what you want. There is more for me to say.
Yeah, there's more. I'm just trying to think. First of all, I'm trying to think from a legal standpoint, not necessarily like if you like, is that considered murder?
Ooh, well, I don't know. I mean, if you can actually prove any connection.
Okay, you got the 200,000.
Yeah. Okay. First, but okay. So this guy might be just crazy.
Exactly. And it's a 50-50. It's such an interesting. It's such a and maybe you're killing somebody that's bad. Let me ask you something. Imagine if you had the same button and you have said you just push it, somebody evil will die. Would you have an issue pushing the button?
Probably I will have issues. Yeah,
you will have. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'll have an issue. If I knew that this would kill evil people, I'd go.
All these evil people. People what?
That I'm saying. Listen,
I know what
people that
kill some
rapists. All these different.
This is I think it's I understand.
It's a bit to the extreme.
I understand what you're saying.
Would you have an issue pushing the button if it was a rapist? If I said to you, you push this, a convicted rapist, you push this, he dies.
Look, it reminds me watching this fascinating documentary, which I don't like so much watching these things in general, but this one was really good with Trevor McDonald, I believe. Do you know this guy?
No.
And he went to death row in America, and he was interviewing people in death row. some and you can see the stories of some people who murdered and see some of them got life sentences. It's terrible. I mean, it's terrible. There's one guy there that I think he's been in prison since the age of 13. He murdered two old people with a friend since the age of 13, and now he's 40 something, and he lives in a small cell size of a toilet. He knows nothing. He doesn't know about reality as we know it. Never drove a car. I mean, never. He got. You know what? It's interesting. He got a book of Kabbalah. There, I'm not saying he's a Kabbalist. He got a book of Kabbalah there in prison, and he says that with this book he travels. That's the only escape he got from these concrete walls that has been capturing him inside for so many years, for decades out of his life.
So this guy, what is he, a murderer?
A murderer. But listen, I'm just telling you, that's probably the most, for me, the story that captured my attention more than the others. But there's a guy who sits there in death row. This guy is not in death row. He's not death row. This one got a life sentence. He probably will never be released from prison. But the guy that is sitting on death row apparently raped and murdered a mother and a daughter. So Trevor McDonald is saying something like, I don't think he's for the death sentence. By the way, he personally doesn't strike me as a guy. Probably he sees it as something that should not be done. But he said, when I think about what you've done, I can see justification for the death sentence.
Exactly.
That's what I said to the guy. So I understand, but this is a big debate.
So in Torah we have death sentence for certain crimes.
Yes.
But we also have that if any court that I think if they're able to carry out two capital punishment within
70 years, it's a severe sanity.
Exactly. So they would always find a way out of the death penalty. But that's what I'm arguing.
But you say evil
if I have a button, that it would give me
200,000. Severe sanity. They give you the money.
I'm taking the money. If I have a thing that someone said, just 200K and the person on death row, a convicted rapist, if I push this button, he dies. Would you have an issue pushing the button?
You say you do like that. Not
I would have. You just. I would take. I would like smash it. How many do you want? Yeah. I'll tell you what. I'll do it for 100K.
You'll pay to do it.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
I'm talking about. Would you do it?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I don't want to give you an answer for that.
You don't give me an answer.
I need to think about it because I told you it comes back to all this idea of death sentence, and I'm not one of these people who goes strictly against the death sentence. Some crimes are just horrible. And I understand they might justify death sentence.
I understand.
So, but it's a different debate. But for me, what it was so interesting, I mean, many things were interesting about this episode. But you have to watch it to see really the tension and the anxiety and the dynamics between the couple. But also, it reminds me of Pandora Box.
No, but it's just so funny. Sorry, just before we get, it's just so funny how you have the guy, the woman who is, we'll call it the greedy woman. Yeah. She was greedy.
She is greedy. Yeah.
She was always complaining about her husband. She wasn't happy with her lot. Who he is rich, happy with his lot. Yeah. And it seems to be suggesting this was a simple guy. He went to work in the morning, earned his money, and he was happy.
Yeah,
he didn't need anything else.
He was not
having more was not what made him happy.
But a good guy, he was not the sharpest man in the world, and he was there neglecting. I mean, didn't necessarily have the money to fix the car for her, so he can help her with shopping.
He was happy with his lot.
He was a good guy, but weak character.
Why was he a weak character?
It seemed to me like he was pretty weak.
He seems like a very noble character.
No, when I say weak character, it seemed to me like it was not that I necessarily blame her. I understand the pressures of marriage life and also living in tough financial situation. But it seemed like if you watch the episode, it seemed like he was breaking under the pressure of the woman. You understand?
Before or during the box?
No. It's a very short duration of time between the receiving the box and then touching the button.
But he didn't. He opened up the box.
He opened the box. He checked it. And after that, he said, "Oh yeah, this is just a piece of garbage. I throw it to the bin." Something like that. I think. And then she took it out, if I remember correctly. But the thing is that, you see, for him, he tried to find, because he was actually a good man, he tried to find any justification, just not to think about it.
Why do you suggest he was a weak man?
Some weakness in his character, or maybe he was just weak-minded. You know what? He was a good person morally, but he was.
Why are good people always? Why are people who care about other people?
I didn't say that.
So what did you say? Say again.
No, I didn't say that. Why always? You deduced from what I said about him. Yeah, but it's not true. I don't agree with you.
So then, why do you consider him a weak character?
Because
I haven't seen the episode, so you should watch. Maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Seems like she was.
Was he going out in the morning making his money?
No. I'm not talking about that. He was.
Or was it about the debate?
It's about how she actually managed to squeeze and push him and push him and push him and push him.
He pushed, but he still remained
Eventually,
resilient.
yeah, well, not really. Eventually, she managed. She
pushed the button.
She pushed. I believe that she pushed the button, but they were both of them sitting in front of the table like that and just push, not push, not push, not push. It became like absolutely insane.
Did he ever say push? If you can remember.
I don't remember. I have to go back to it. But it seemed to me that it should have been a bit more firm. But I guess, look, it's easy to say it, but not necessarily easy in reality. Like I told you, I used to be married. It's not always easy, especially when you're in a situation like that. And this is a lot also about life, about the pressure of life, about how life can grind you to pieces and grind your moral compass. Even you don't need to be the most intellectually aware person or the most philosophical, or someone who can introspect and someone can, create so many observations. It's difficult.
Interesting. I'd love to watch it.
This is an episode that you can find, by the way. You can watch it, I think, online. That actually takes me to another relevant subject. So I think I would really like to hear your opinion about it. Pandora box. Okay.
Yes.
So do you know the story of Pandora box?
No, yeah, well, I don't know, maybe the beginning or there. I mean, she found a box. It had all the bad in the world.
No, it's not really like that. But I'll tell you why it's relevant. Because this was actually written by a man.
Greeks, no?
It's Greek, yes. And the man who wrote it, Hesiod, I believe it was his name. He was the first poet, apparently, of Greece. So we are talking about one of the most important civilizations when it comes to culture. And he was the first of them. I'm telling you exactly why I'm saying it. In a second, you will understand it. But he wrote the story. So Pandora is about that. There were two
little girl, no?
There was sorry?
A little girl.
No. There were two brothers. Prometheus, Prometheus, he stole apparently, according to mythology, he stole the fire from the gods. So the god Zeus, who was the biggest, who was the biggest of them all, the god of the gods, was really upset about him, and he made a plot how to take revenge in Prometheus and his brother Epimetheus. So Prometheus never trusted the gods. He told his brother not to receive any gifts from them, but because they stopped creating Pandora. Pandora was a woman created by the gods, and she was supposed to be charming, beautiful, and she also was supposed to be very deceptive. That's why they created it in some sort of a revenge that they wanted to take on the brothers for stealing such a precious thing, which is fire. So, of course, Epimetheus didn't listen to his brother, warning him not to take presents from the gods. He fell in love with her. And he married her. And Zeus gave them a gift, which is the box with nothing tangible as we know it, yes? But he gave them a box and he said, okay, don't open this box. They give it to you, but don't open it.
So I don't understand. Why give a gift that you can't open?
This is some sort of a godly story, right? There is a moral there. I mean, it's beyond the realm of reality, the physical reality as we know it. That's what I'm trying to say.
So you can't. There's a concept you can't ask a question on a story. But anyway, carry on.
Okay, so he gave them the box, and since the box is given, Pandora cannot stop being curious about what will happen when she'll open the box. She gets obsessed. Pretty similar to what is happening here. Of course, it's based on Pandora box. So and Prometheus tells her, no, don't do it. Come with us, dance with us, come outside. It was in the basement. Nothing else. Eventually, she couldn't help it, and she opened the box, and all the ills of society, the demons, the diseases, everything just went out. This is what Zeus gave them, and it was a Trojan horse. He gave them a gift and released everything that is bad into the world. Now, wait a second. Now, let me tell you. So I told you that this is apparently the first poet of Greece. Now, you go online, you write Pandora box on YouTube, guess what you will find? Many video clips, if not most of the video clips. This is a misogynist tale. Maybe they want to cancel it. I don't know. I didn't have patience even listening to these people, but apparently probably it's going to be canceled soon. Now, I want to say something. I think these people don't really care about culture in general. But also, Pandora, there is one more thing that was released with all the illnesses. And that's a very important part of the story that I think they're overlooking because it benefits them to overlook. she released hope as well. The last voice, after she released all the demons from that, there was one voice that was screaming from the, because they had to shut it immediately after they realized what happened, and that was the voice of hope. And then they released hope. So before that, there was no hope. There was no illnesses. There were no illnesses, but there was no hope. So it's in a way a very beautiful story if you think about it.
Mm.
Of course, today it's already been tagged as a misogynist.
It's misogynist. Why? Because she screwed up.
Because the woman is the one who released, and she's the one who is to be held responsible for all the illnesses and demons. But she released hope as well. It was meant to be like that. Look, it's pretty sad. I got to tell you, I was in a Shoreditch in maybe two years ago, or something like that. I found a book of Greek mythology and I read Pandora box there, and there was a woman with us sitting, and she said, "I don't like this story." And she said to another friend of mine, another woman friend of mine, and she asked why. She said, because Pandora is being depicted as a very naughty woman. She also said it's a misogynist. Okay. Let's cancel it. Let's cancel it. I said, we don't need to know history. Why we need to care about history, right? We don't
I
need
don't think
to.
we should cancel it because it's Greek mythology.
Yeah. Mythology. I got to tell you, I love Greek mythology, and I think you can learn a lot from it. I don't take it. I don't take it as a form of worship. I don't believe in a multiply gods sitting, and Zeus and all these and the other parts of the bunch, and they are controlling the world. But I definitely like Greek mythology.
You want to know something interesting? Just because you're talking this, there is a concept in the Torah, not in the rabbis' brings. They say, and this might make us cancelled, but they say that the woman, the woman had. It says that their knowledge, they have das, like very it's like very cold. How do you say that? It's weak. Women have weak minds and men have strong minds. That's why women can't really paskan halacha. They can't really decide what we should do because they have weak minds. Now, obviously, they're not saying that. Now, everyone thinks they're saying they're stupid. It doesn't say that. What it's suggesting over there is that women are very emotional and they're driven by emotion.
Mhm.
A man is driven by his intellect. I'm not saying there aren't some men who are emotional. I'm saying in general, women are emotionally driven. Men are intellectually driven. When it comes
Thanks God for that. Yes.
when it comes
This is why we have to have each other.
when it comes to deciding legal ramification, you need more logic than emotions. That's why sometimes you can have something which doesn't seem emotionally correct or bad, but legally this is what we have to do. And there was a woman who was Reb Meir's wife called Buria, yeah, and she was first of all she was an amazing woman. She was like a rabbi, and she was used to paskan halach. She used to say what the law is. She was very very intelligent. She had the ability to say what the halacha is, what the right, what the legal things to do. But when she learned this, she had an argument with her husband. She said, "No, it's not true. Women do not have." Because she herself was a very intelligent. She was very intellectual, and she argued with her husband, Reb Meir, the famous Reb Meir. I don't know if you know him. Like he was one of the biggest Hanoim, one of the biggest teachers, right? So they had an argument, husband and wife. So Reb Meir decided to test her. Do you know what he did? It was terrible. It's a terrible story. It's a sad story. It's in Gemara Avodah Zarah. I'll show you afterwards if I can find it. The Talmud tells us he tested her. What he did was he got his student. Reb Meir got his student to seduce his own wife. That's what he did. Just to prove that she was wrong. That women run by emotion, not by intellect. You understand? And he was successful. The student was successful, and I don't need to say what happened next. And the mayor found out, and he said to her, "You see, I told you, women are driven by emotion." And she got so.
It's a tragic story.
It's a tragic story. She jumped out the window and killed herself. It's a terrible story. But I'm just saying, listening to this, when you have a wife, a woman, and a man's, the man's approach and the woman's approach are very different. When things are driven by emotion, it's Pandora's box.
Yeah, I agree.
It's catastrophe. When you have emotion controlled by the head, that's when you have, beauty. That's what the Tanya is all about. Your emotion should be your brain should be the one that creates emotion. emotion shouldn't influence the brain, you know. And we see a lot of our time. What's Pandora's box is basically emotion controlling you. That's what it is. It's pure emotion. This is good. That's bad. I want greed. You know, that's anger. That's emotion. Intellect doesn't have any anger in it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Intellect does not have any love in it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have that, but it can produce love based on intellect. Can produce, you know, all, and that's a more sustain, and that's more by men you find than by women. Now, anyway, it's a bit, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But I agree with you. I've heard
Anything I'm
before.
saying is from Tanya.
No,
Yeah,
I should read a bit more into the Tanya.
It's very interesting.
I've heard it before, by the way, and I agree with you absolutely on that.
So that's what I was thinking about this episode.
It is, yeah, it's very interesting.
I'm sorry to share the tragic story. It's a very tragic
It
story.
is a very tragic story. Even if she was not to commit suicide, the actual idea that that they had the cheating was happening. I mean, it's
and yet, no. Also, the sad is that the husband may have tested it. I mean, that's the whole thing. The whole story is a very sad story.
No, it is very tragic.
Yeah.
There's another episode that I liked. Okay, you know what? Let's go to the other one because I had two more. But let's talk about the one who is a bit more serious. Actually, that was one of the darkest. Coming back to another of these dark moments, but that was not.
Let's do one more, and then we'll leave, and then let's do one more story.
So I think this one we should do because it's
and then we will do another part. We've got so many.
So this one actually came from the Outer Limits. The Outer Limits was another TV program, pretty similar to the Twilight Zone. And this is not a. No, but it's very similar. It's very similar. And one of my favorite science fiction writers, Alan Ellison, a Jewish guy who passed away a few years ago, he wrote for them a very famous episode. I actually believe, but you have to read into it a bit further, that Terminator, Terminator, the film, was based on an idea that was taken from Alan Ellison, one of the episodes of The Outer Limits. And he even took them to court. Something happened. They needed to get certain settlement agreement about royalties or the name of the originator of the concept. Anyway, going back to the episode, this is from the 90s, I believe, and they call it Simon Says. Do you remember this game, Simon Says? Yeah,
I know the game.
Okay, but this is a very dark episode, one of the most frightening as well, in my opinion. And usually the Outer Limits was not necessarily a dark, I mean, it dealt with some dark issues, but that was probably the darkest of them all. So they call it Simon Says. And what was it actually about? It was about a man, a father, he's not young father, and he's some sort of an inventor, or at least he works for a computer company. He got one son who is a bit of a spoiled kid in his behavior, and he got a wife. And the episode starts with his wife and son going on a car ride, and there is a terrible accident. The wife dies. She got killed, and the son apparently was hospitalized with his very last breaths, and he passed away as well. But his father, who was an inventor, managed to use a technique that he developed in his company, which can upload the consciousness of a human being into a computer, into a machine.
It's like a Robocop.
Yeah. So this is but the Robocop was some sort of a cyborg. There was still some
elements of the person.
So exactly, some element of at least flesh-wise. In this sense, there is nothing flesh left. It's all about the consciousness. It's always this non-tangible idea of consciousness. It just uploads it into the computer. And from uploading it into the computer, it tries to build a robot so he can bring his son back to life also as a physical being, not just as a voice in a computer.
Sounds like Pinocchio.
Yeah, exactly. It's based on that as well. It's a very dark Pinocchio. Pinocchio itself is very dark in my opinion. But so wait a second. So what happens there is that he cannot actually build him. There are a lot of parts missing. So what
what, from a physical point or from an emotion?
So you get something that looks really bad, really frightening as well. It's like some sort of it's a robot.
Quasimodo, you know Quasimodo?
Yes.
From the Hunchback.
The Hunchback, yeah. So it's something that looks half-made. It's broken. They are not. It doesn't have legs. His arms are not really working. The face is not. It just looks like mechanical bones. It's terrible. The expressions. They did a really good work on the technology there, on the animatronics, I think they call it. But the idea there that I wanted to understand is that this thing fairly quickly escalates and deteriorates into a murder. I mean, seriously, that's. I'm giving you already the end of
What
it,
do you mean
but
by murder?
wait, I'll explain to you. So what happens is that the father is so obsessed with rebuilding his son because he loves his son so much. Of course, he loves him. He cannot accept the fact that his son should have died natural death. I mean, no, it's not so not natural death,
Before the
not natural death.
unnatural.
Yeah, unnatural death. Yes,
Shadow.
so my mistake. Unnatural death, but he could not accept the fact that his son was whatever it's written, was supposed to die. He had the technology, so now he's going to save him, and he's going to build a robot with the consciousness of his son. And he has his niece, who is already a young adult, a woman, and she lives near him, and she doesn't realize that her uncle actually managed to rebuild his son. She sure is dead. And then she comes into the flat. She hears some noises, and reveals the secret gets revealed, and she gets very frightened because the kid behaves in a very. He was always very bratty in his behavior, so now he's a robot as well. So he doesn't. For example, he doesn't know how to use his arms, so he kills the cat. He takes the cat. It was to cuddle the cat, but he gets a bit upset every time he gets angered. Something happens. You understand? And his father does everything, and he doesn't care about sacrificing his niece in the process. And eventually what happens is that the company he works for, they realize that he's stealing parts in order to rebuild him. So the supervisor comes to his place and he sees what happens, and then he says, wow, this is an amazing achievement. So he is a property of the company. Your son is a property of the company. So he comes to take him, and the father gets so upset that he murders him. And after he murders him, he says, okay, what he's going to do now? Now he's going to go and sit in prison for the rest of his life. Now he's going to be with his son. So he uploads his consciousness and commits suicide. He uploads his consciousness into another robot and commits suicide. But the worst part of it is that actually the niece witnesses everything, all this tragedy, and then she has to deal with the police coming, seeing bodies and two robots that no one can believe that they actually got consciousness and what happened. She will have to explain how something like that happened. Do you understand the story?
I understand.
And it's a very intense episode. I think it won an award, by the way.
That is an incredible concept.
Yes.
The question is like this: is the consciousness real or not? That's the first thing, because is the consciousness real for from the people who lost it? Like from the father's perspective, the consciousness is real, but is it really real, or is it a program? And therefore, that's the first thing I was thinking about. You understand what I'm saying?
According to the premise of the story, he managed to upload everything that his son was.
Yeah, but was doesn't mean is.
Yes. Okay. Well,
It's like I can take a picture. I can take a picture with lasers and have a person standing in front of you and speaking to you and the same actions. From my perspective, remember that story you told me about the other Twilight Zone with the alien?
I can with that. You talk about the lonely with the robot.
The lonely with he's on the planet.
Exactly.
You understand? The same idea is that
but we are not talking about now an artificial being. We are talking about an original, let's say, a human being that was uploaded into the. But at the same time, of course, he could have uploaded him a million different times. Let's say that he separates into a million different entities. All of them come from, let's say, point zero. That he uploaded that consciousness, and he makes like million different simulacras, whatever they call it, like copies, clones, and each one of them is going to evolve differently. Maybe.
But do they evolve in the story?
It evolves, of course, because
it grows. What the robot grows?
It grows from consciousness, intelligence. I don't know if it gets more intelligent, but it goes through experiences.
I don't know what you mean by consciousness. What is consciousness?
Wow, that's a big question. I mean, I don't
understand the
I don't think that anyone can really answer it at this stage, but I can tell you that much, that whatever the kid was, call it whatever you want, whatever it was in when it comes to his personality, his awareness, his being. Let's say that you just took his brain out and put his brain in some other body, okay? So that came into the computer. But there is one.
Let me ask you before you carry on. Let me ask you,
Yeah.
from this episode, is the robot him?
The robot is a continuation of the kid. The kid.
Did he die?
But the robot?
No, the
The
kid.
kid. The kid died.
Yes. This robot is the kid?
He is the kid, yes.
100%?
He is the kid.
So if that's the case, and that's the premise of the story, why did he think by killing himself he's going to be absolved of any justice?
Because according to his plan, he is going to upload his consciousness to the computer.
I understand.
No one would believe that something like that is possible.
I understand, but how would that help him?
It would help him in a way that he will be able to continue living with his son in this like as to who knows what will happen later. The police will come to the crime scene. Maybe we'll take it as evidence. Then he will be able. Then as a robot, maybe he will be able to do something because they still have the freedom of movement as robots. No one will believe anyway that these robots are alive. You know.
So therefore nobody thinks it's really them. Oh, the only people that know that it's really still them are these two people.
Yeah, and the niece, and no one will believe the niece anyway, and she's now involved in a double murder.
Yes, if she would come along and say it was the robots who did it,
they can go and see whatever they want with the robots, but no one is going to believe it. They're just going to be still, and that's okay, fine, you know. Well, yeah, all right, the robot did it.
So he's kind of, yeah, but technically they could also destroy the robots and
they can do that. It takes these chances, but
it takes the
chance. But according to his idea, he realized that he made such a decision by killing the guy, the supervisor, that now he's involved in a murder. So that means that naturally, it's more than likely that he's going to be arrested and then sent to prison for the rest of his life.
And this makes sense from his son. And where's the wife? She also died.
The wife, she died.
Why didn't he bring back his wife?
I don't think he. Maybe it was
because of the others. Maybe because from the other story, you know, women make you crazy.
I think there was nothing left of her. With the kid, he was still in a situation, in a state, in a limbo before he died, that he could save his consciousness. But it's very interesting.
It's a very sad story. I'm not saying the guy who's holding on to the past, which is not able to move
and willing to sacrifice everything in the process.
Exactly, and it's very, very, very sad to think about it. And I think it's the lesson in life. I think the lesson from this story is, and I know it's very easy to say, but tragedy is supposed to make you move forward. Mm-hmm. You know, you're not supposed to revel in tragedy. Tragedy is supposed to be like a catapult. When you have something tragic that happens to you, when it's happening to you, yes, it's bad, but your next stage is not to hold on to it. And I'm not saying it's easy, you know, because once you hold on to the past, if you're holding on to the past, you can't move forward, and actually you can bring destruction. You know, as we know, many times, I'm not judging them, but we find that us Jews, after the Holocaust, we wanted to just go and kill every German or something because or not buy German cars or, all these different things. But if you hold on to the past, you need to learn from the past. But I'm not sure if it's healthy to hold on to the past. If you want to, like Donald Trump says, make America great again. I mean, let's make America. It's like before was better. Not necessarily before was better.
I think that a lot of things were better before, but I understand what you're saying. I think that boxing in the 40s of the 20th century was better than the boxing today.
But you just like the old man. You're just the father who wants his son back. That's it.
But
if you ask somebody, if you ask me, I'll let's say somebody who's now boxing, they'll say, you know what, now boxing is in 20 years' time. They'll say this boxing today was much better. You know?
No, but not to say it's not like that. I'm sorry. I think it's something that I can prove, and I wrote a lot of articles about it. I think you can prove it by numbers, by statistics, by the stories as well. I mean, of course, it's not an accurate science. By the way, even the most accurate science is not necessarily accurate, and we spoke about it as well, I think. But I can show you certain things that I understand well, like boxing, I believe. And also with music, I believe that the best music of the 20th century was probably belonged somewhere between the 40s to the 50s. But I don't. By the way, I just want to tell you another thing, because you said something very correct and obviously very natural. It's a sad story, extremely tragic story. And there is one part there that was so sad. You can watch it. You can find the episode. I think it's online. That they are going on a carousel like that. It takes him to the Luna Park. There is a guy, one of the security guards is an old man, and he knows the old man, so he brings the robot of the son. I think the old man possibly doesn't even suspect. He just looks at the father as one of these weird old guys that got a robot with him, and he puts the robot on a horse, and he sits on a horse, and the carousel starts walking, and you see how much they suddenly like forget
That
that.
one's a robot and one's
Exactly, they
yeah,
just
because they're reaching it because those experiences are beyond the physical. You know, there's a
yes,
physical and there's an emotional and spiritual side of
transcended it.
things. You know, exactly. There's just yeah, it transcends the physical. But I just want to go back to another point of the story, which I think is very, very apt, is that a lot of us are stuck in the past. You know, Ita, you're stuck in the past. I'm also stuck in the past. Forget
Because
about boxing. Forget
no,
about
it's,
I'm
it's
talking about
no,
every action that we do now.
but I tell you
It is completely our challenge, and what we have to work
but
on is that every action we do going forward is independent on how we were molded through our parents, through our society,
yes,
through everything, and that's
okay.
important.
I'm not saying it's not, but for me, I'm saying it, hoping that tomorrow, not necessarily tomorrow, but you said and said in the future, and hopefully in the close by future, boxing will get better. That's all I want. I'm not saying that it's
I'm not
that's
talking about boxing. Boxing we can debate on.
let's no, I'm just saying in general that you have to understand me appreciating what happened in the let's say in the fourth decade of the 20th century is because I recognize and I was investigating and studying the history. So it's very interesting to me, and I wish that we will have something like that today. I don't want to all treat it like that's it. It's never going to come back again, and we will never have anything like. I wish that we will get even better. Let's say that boxing. By the way, we had a very good year of boxing, if anything. We had a lot of good fights. I wanted to speak with you about Teofimo Lopez versus Josh Taylor, but you haven't watched it yet. I
No,
remember.
no, I need to.
Okay, right.
I'm going on Tuesday night to do some boxing, so maybe then I'll
The
let you.
boxing rabbi.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's fascinating. Itai,
Yes.
this has been a great, great
Thank you. The same.
episode.
Thank you.
And we'll hopefully for next episode we'll tackle another couple of ideas. You know, maybe if I find another also something that you know that breaches the regular mold of things and makes us think a bit. Shkoyach, everybody. Have a great day.
Have a
See you
great
till
day.
next time.